Welcome to Musicians Peer Support, everybody. Today we're welcoming Darren Korb. Darren, we're going to give you a few rounds of applause here. I like the applause. I just think it's just a good way to recognize you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm doing
Good.
well. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I know you've been traveling. We're going to
Mhm.
talk about that. So, despite all of that, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Darren, where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in San Jose, California. Uh, and it was I had a good group of nerdy friends,
Uh huh.
and it was a cool place to grow up if you have your people. There wasn't a lot to do as like a teenager.
Mm,
But we found our thing and we played a lot of D&D and video games and all that
mhm.
stuff. And so
Nice.
yeah, we played a lot of music and yeah.
So, you were into music at an early age?
Yeah, I started singing and doing musical theater when I was like 5 years old, I think, and doing like children's theater. And then I started playing instruments when I was maybe 11, picked up the guitar and kind of, got more and more into that. I had a band, started writing some songs, and then by the time I was kind of like partway through high school, I got pretty deep into recording and felt like, oh, this is maybe the thing for me. Like this process is so exciting to me that I got to keep doing this for sure. The fact that it's such a technical and creative process, it's like both things. So it fully lit up my whole brain, when I was doing it. So I think that's part of what was attractive about that to me.
What was your first instrument?
Guitar.
Guitar. And when did you start playing that?
About around 11. Yeah, 11 years old.
Did you take lessons?
I took some lessons for a couple of years in the beginning, and then I took some more lessons in college. And I wasn't like a great student. Like I wasn't good at drilling or practicing the things that, the base, like the boring stuff.
The
But I,
exercises and stuff?
right, no, like I was, yeah, that I didn't have the patience for that at the time. Only recently, actually, have I gained the patience to like actually practice things that are hard. But I would play a lot and I would write songs and I would learn songs and all that. And so I kind of like pieced enough together, over time where, my style of learning instruments, I think, is like if I have a specific thing I want to be able to play or accomplish, I can like I'll like improve just to be able to do that, or I'll join a band where I'm the worst member and be like, oh man, I gotta, okay, and then I'll practice, and that kind of thing is motivating for me.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later when we
Yeah,
talk about your music journey.
yeah.
But what were the early influences for you back in the day? Like, do you remember,
Yeah.
was there like a moment in maybe your early childhood where you're like music, like this is it?
Yeah, I can think of like a handful of important, moments for me. I think in terms of video game music, one of the early instances of me hearing video game music and be like, whoa, what is this? Was Marble Madness for the NES.
Okay.
Um, I just like uh, it's so weird. It's like this MC Escher like NES game, I'm like, what is happening? And so even as a little, I was probably 5 years old or something when I played that game, 5 or 6. I was like, this is blowing my mind right now. The music is crazy, and it sounded, kind of not like anything I'd ever heard, and just super super strange in just the right way for me. So that's one.
Nice.
You know, uh, Growing up, I my parents and stuff listened to a lot of musical theater, so I have that influence as well, and I did a
Okay,
lot of that
nice.
growing up.
Anything in particular?
Yeah, I mean, like all the Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff, Les
Sure,
Mis,
sure.
like various rock musicals and things, and I did plays growing up and all that stuff, and
Okay,
like the Stephen Schwartz, stuff and all
okay,
that.
nice.
Um, and then but then when I started playing guitar, started getting into like guitar music more, started getting into like alternative rock and stuff. And in middle school, I got into Weezer, the first
Hmm.
two, like the first Weezer album, then the second Weezer album, and then I really got into those
We
two,
got some Weezer fans in the room.
Yeah, in particular, I'm sort of like a Old Testament Weezer fan. It's just it's just those two
Yeah.
albums, but yeah, nobody hates Weezer as much as Weezer fans. I think is the thing that I've heard. But anyway, the so yeah, Weezer, They Might Be Giants was an early influence on me, and
Yes.
they've been a favorite band of mine for a long time. I've seen them probably more than like any other band
Wow.
in concert. Around that time, what else? I was listening to like I got into the Pixies and that kind of thing. I had like a brief flirtation with Dave Matthews Band when I was in high school. As
Okay.
I think many of us had a little Dave Matthews period.
Yeah,
And
everyone had a Dave Matthews phase, right?
right, yes.
But it sounds like games were like, I mean, the first thing you
Mm.
mentioned was a
Yeah,
game.
right.
So like it always went hand in hand for you then from the beginning, you think.
It's interesting. It was sort of like parallel, separate things for me. Like I appreciated game music
Mm.
for, and certain games I really appreciated the music for, but it wasn't like kind of overall a big part of my brain space
You weren't
consuming
like
music.
you weren't like, oh, I'm gonna be a video game composer when you were
Right.
a kid,
No, I was not.
right?
And I didn't even know that was like a job I could do until I was asked to do that job. Like I
And you
didn't
were an
really,
adult.
and I was an adult. Yeah, I was 25 or whatever
Okay,
when I got asked
okay,
to do that.
okay.
And I've never looked back. That was Bastion, was that project. And
Wow.
so I've been
There you
doing it
go.
ever since with the same folks.
Yeah, yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, for me, it was like a parallel interest, and I loved games growing up, and I played a lot of games. And my good friend Amir Rao, who co-founded Supergiant Games, we met when we were 8 years old,
Oh.
and started playing D&D together. And like I'd go to sleep over at his house, and we'd play Shining Force 2 all night and listen to Flood by They Might Be Giants or whatever. Um, and then he was a drummer. We played in bands together for years and all that stuff. And then in college, he started getting into video game design. Like he had been designing games like pen and paper games forever. And we played a lot of these kind of homebrew pen and paper games over the years with our group of friends. And and he was an English major, but he took a game design class. And then he started really getting into that. And he worked at EA LA for a couple of years right out of college on the Command and Conquer series. And I was sort of like, whoa, you're actually working on games. That's amazing. And it was really cool. And he kind of like saw how the sausage is made up close a little bit at a big company like EA and was like, maybe I can start my own company, you know. Um, and he and a couple other folks from that he'd met through EA and his situation there co-founded Supergiant. And he's like, hey, you know audio stuff, music, you want to do all the audio for this game I'm working on? I was like, yeah, sure. I'll learn how to do that as I go.
And but you were producing at the time though.
Yeah.
You were already recording in high school.
Yeah, yeah. So I was making music. Like the thing I was doing at that moment, I was out of college. I was living in New York still. I went to NYU. I was interning in a recording studio. I was writing songs just to try to be a songwriter of some sort or a recording artist or something, performing artist. Um, I was producing kind of local folks, like local New York artists for some money or no money. Had occasionally would do like a hired musician gig, like play guitar for some folks. I was joining Craigslist bands just to like play, like gain experience and do whatever, play more as much as I could. And that's when Amir was tapped me to like, hey, would you be interested in working on this thing? And oh, and I also co-wrote a musical with my brother during that
Oh
time as
wow.
well. Just
Did you
before
ever
that.
get that produced?
We got it. We did a staged reading in the New York Musical Theater Festival in like
Cool.
2012, I
Oh,
think,
how
2011.
nice.
2011, I think.
What was that
Um,
about?
it was like it was based on a screenplay my brother had written, and it was about two straight best friends who kind of get married so they can keep the rent controlled apartment that his grandmother has or whatever, that kind of thing. Um,
Cool.
so and then the complications ensue, obviously.
Right. Oh, how
But so yeah,
fun.
I wrote that, yeah. And so that was like the project I did kind of immediately before um I was I was asked, to kind of work on Bastion. So,
Wow. So there you go. Yeah, I was because that usually I ask like get me from that childhood moment
mhm,
to
mhm,
to the gig, and there you go.
mhm.
And I think a lot of the community members can kind of relate to that kind of early journey of you're doing the thing, you're going on Craigslist, you're
Right,
picking up the gigs, you're putting out.
right.
I mean, you really do have to be resourceful as a
Yeah.
musician.
Oh yeah.
But ultimately, it was a childhood friend.
Right,
We always talk about cultivating relationships and how important that is in work and everything. And then here
right.
you are. And by the way, everybody, please follow Darren, support Supergiant Games, and show them any support that you can. Darren, I'd love to dig into some kind of shop talk type stuff
Yep.
here, if you don't mind. Oh, by the
Yeah.
way,
Mhm.
anybody in the room, I know our group is shy, but please feel free to ask questions. You can type them in the chat, you can raise your hand. I mean, you guys have known me for many years. I think most of these people have been around for years. Please don't be shy today. Darren's a great one to ask, and I'm pretty sure he's super smart and can answer can answer any of them. So Hades, can we just like dig
Yep.
into Hades real quick?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mentioned this to you, and just briefly for the recording, my family in El Nido, Philippines. I'm on vacation, and I walk in, and my niece plays cello. Her friend plays saxophone. They got a drummer, and I hear this music, and I'm like, "What is this?" And I stayed there for about a month because I was on vacation for an extended period of time. And I'm pretty sure every band rehearsal, without even talking about anything, um, immediately into your music. And I believe it's in the blood. I think
Oh, cool.
I think is what their like go-to thing is.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I just like fell in love with that. And then they proceeded to tell me how much they really love your music, and I was
Cool.
like, you know what? I have this group. Maybe I could see if I can get an interview here. So,
Yeah.
shout out to Newfound Hyperfixation, which is the name of the band
Nice.
in El Nido, Philippines. Thank you so much for introducing me to the music of Darren Korb, because look at this amazing experience that we have here. So, were you influenced by Greek music at all, composing for Hades?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking just before the call. About 20 years ago, I spent a good 6 months kind of backpacking around Europe. And the first 2 months of that, I was a space camp counselor in Turkey.
Oh, wow.
And at a like Turkish space camp for like it's a US space for anyway, it was very long story,
That's
but
so cool.
it is cool. And I got to I spent 2 months in Turkey and I tried to soak up as much of the music and stuff as I could while I was there. And I traveled to Greece a decent amount during that time and then at the beginning of my sort of travels around Europe. And I definitely tried to soak in that palette as much as I could while I was there. And I actually ended up buying a Balama then in 2005, but I like couldn't transport it home. I was about to travel for months, and so I just kind of like left it there.
Can you
Um,
explain what that is?
yeah, Balama is like a Turkish saz. It's kind of a long neck saz. It's got seven, where is it? It's not, I don't have it accessible, but it's like a seven stringed with three courses of strings. It's got like a bulbous kind of body and it's got microtonal frets
Mm.
and it's got like
Microtonal
yeah, so
frets.
yeah, it's pretty funky. And then it's got like three courses of strings, so it's like an octave, like a low high octave, unison in the middle, two unisons, and then a low high high on like a
Oh,
three on the top course.
oh, very
Um,
nice.
so it's pretty weird, but it's got like a really specific sound, and that ended up being in addition to the bouzouki and the lavta, which is another sort of Turkish kind of lute-like instrument with like classical style strings, on it. Those three instruments kind of made up the sound of or the Mediterranean aspect of the sound. It's called Balama it's Baglama, and it's got the sort of silent Turkish G in there. Is how you spell that. So in any case, that was like I wrote, that's Good Riddance, like that song is played on the Balama and out of Tartarus and all that stuff like that. All those riffs, like those are, Balama sort of written on the Balama kind of riffs. Um,
Oh, okay.
and a lot of it is, one thing that I really like to do at the start of a project is I love to kind of find some instruments that I don't fully understand
Hmm.
and mess around,
Yes.
and something, or even if it's just like alternate tunings on a guitar, whatever, something that makes me like have to kind of blank slate it a little bit.
Yep, get you out of your comfort zone kind of
Right.
with your
Yeah, it's
brain.
like it's not your muscle memory writing the songs, it's
Yes,
your ear,
right.
like it's not you play that big power chord when you pick up your guitar, whatever. It's not like
Yes,
so it will not have that,
this is like a common pivot that I
Yeah.
recommend for like writer's block or like
Yeah. Yeah.
songwriters is like do that.
Yeah.
And so you do that before every project.
I like to. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
I'll
awesome.
try to pick up some instrument that I'm not super comfortable or familiar with and kind of mess around.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was the case for Hades. I mean, I picked up a few instruments that I didn't really know how to play. I mean, because I play guitar, I've got the mechanical ability to play these instruments, but no knowledge. Um, and so that was so you kind of invent your own language on it. You're like I invented my own way into like, oh, here's kind of how like a minor type shape and a major type shape, and like here's how I kind of approach these things.
You
And
kind of find your way for through what
yeah,
sounds good.
right, yeah, exactly. And I, I'm playing it in a very non-traditional way, and kind of repurposing this traditional Turkish instrument in a way that's, you know, it's not like how it's supposed to be. But I think that putting things in different context, I think is like a pretty common like running theme for how I like to approach stuff is you take a thing and just like put in a totally different context and it really has a new vibe.
Keeps it fresh.
Yeah, and it could be a traditional, a thing just using it wrong, literally is like sometimes all it takes, just doing it, kind of throwing away the manual and just like, well, let's see what,
Yeah,
you know.
I love that.
Um, yeah.
That's a very musician's peer support type of mentality.
Right, yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And another question here from Newfound Hyperfixation in El Nido is the irregular time signatures in
Yeah.
Hades. Was that intentional? Was it something that like they wanted, or were you thinking like, no, like odd time is like perfect for this? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah. Uh, it was deliberate for me. Because I wanted something musical that reflected the sort of unpredictable nature of the structure of the game. And, I feel like odd time signatures, you're a little off balance all the time. You have this feeling of sort of stumbling forward is sort of how I like to describe listening to odd time signature music, especially the first time before you know what it is. You can kind of groove to it after a while, but at first you're like, what the heck?
Right.
Um, so I wanted to mirror the player experience in the music, basically was sort of my goal with the odd time signatures. And you have this sort of like ever shifting underworld where it's constantly changing, and kind of keeping you on your toes. And I wanted to do the same thing in the music.
Wow. Very cool. So they give you free creative reign. There no
Yeah.
parameters.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm the audio director at Supergiant Games.
Okay.
So
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 you're the boss.
so I give myself the
You give yourself the
I tell
notes.
myself what to do and then I do it.
Right.
In general. I work closely with other members of the creative team and Greg Kasavin, our creative director and stuff. We work closely together, and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's in general, I'm sort of percolating and I try to come up with the approach myself and I'll just start kind of making it and
Yeah.
putting it in and that's kind of an early part of our development process. Once we start working on a project and we sort of have a direction where we're trying to go, I spend right away, I just start trying to prototype some music stuff and just
Yeah.
figuring out like,
Just
well, what,
create some cues and like create the world.
yeah, like what's the style, what's the tone, what's the vibe, what's, what are we trying to, what are we aiming for here, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
And when you're in that phase, or what kind of you're creating shorter musical cues. I'm not a gaming composer, so I'm not familiar with like what
hmm.
the structure of that is. So like, you're not creating 2.5 minute pieces of music, or
I
because
mean,
in the blood,
yeah,
like when
right,
I walk in the room,
yeah,
they're doing this piece of music. It's start to
right,
finish and
right,
beautiful ending.
right.
Um, but how are you doing it in the initial phases?
Yeah, I mean, my background is songwriting, and so
Okay.
I really approach even instrumental pieces, I approach them like a complete song, with
Okay.
the usually, my sort of default, unless the piece calls for something else, is like a B, A, B, C, B, whatever, kind of
Sure.
structure.
Okay. So even
Um,
in this situation, that's how you
yeah,
start because like that's
it's just
what
how I'm
you do.
wired. Yeah,
Right. Right.
right.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Very cool. Okay.
right. Yeah, I'm trying to, it's kind of like proof of concept for the sound of the project in a lot of ways, and sometimes it'll take me like a few pieces to really get at the core of what is going to define the sound of the project. um but yeah, but in the case of Hades, it was like I made a couple of pieces, and then about a few months into working on the project, we did kind of like a creative pivot a little bit. Just kind of, it was going to be about like ancient Greek stuff. And then we had like a cleaner sort of idea, like, oh, it's going to be about the son of the god of the dead. You're trying to escape, blah, 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 that. And then it sort of crystallized for me. Um, and then after we did that kind of reboot, I think the first piece I made was Out of Tartarus, which is that 21/8, weird thing on the Balamad. And that really helped kind of define, like, okay, this is sort of like like a pin in the center of the map of the sort of tone of this project.
Yeah.
And I can, as long as I'm sort of somewhere in the ballpark in one direction or another of this thing, it's going to help center the efforts and try to keep them cohesive.
Wow. That's really great insight into the creative process. And not, we don't know what others are doing. I mean, the
Right,
whole purpose of this is learning from right from the source here.
right,
But it's really nice to see that the artistic integrity, like there's a vision and an artistic integrity, and you're kind of keeping it in the family, so to speak. And it's not like too many cooks in the kitchen or
right,
something, where like
right,
you
right, right,
can really have creative reign over that. And I mean, it says something about the user experience. Like, there's a reason why Hades and Hades 2 are so popular. The experience in and of itself. I mean, the music. Yeah, you have cover bands of this music and your
yeah,
wonderful performances that everybody can view. I mean, there's a reason why it works, and I just really love the fact that you're coming from. A place that's somewhat relatable to a lot of the people in our community,
right,
whereas like
yeah,
we put you up on a pedestal, 'cause, we idolize you for what you do, and it's definitely worthy, of praise. But it's also important to recognize, I think, that like you're a normal guy, like I mean, maybe extraordinary in your own way, um, but that this might be achievable for people that may not have thought that it would be achievable, even for like a
right,
songwriter, for example,
right,
switching to composer.
right.
Whereas like you're coming from a songwriter standpoint, you're not coming from like an orchestral composition standpoint.
Not at all. Yeah. I mean, I only recently have begun dabbling with that a little bit, and I have backup. You know what I mean? I'm working with Austin Wintory, who's like, that's his thing.
Yeah.
So it's not like I kind of, I'll write some stuff and be like, here, can you
But
make
you did
that?
all the orchestrations for Hades, right?
So Austin and I, for Hades. So yeah, for Hades, I did all the arrangement except for I had help with the two orchestral pieces in that game that I'd sent to Austin, my pass at it, and he like did a proper orchestration of the stuff,
Gotcha. Okay.
and for those two. And then we did some co-writing on Hades 2 for the orchestral stuff,
Okay.
where I'd send him, you know, here's an A section. It's basically riffs. Like, here's the A section, here's the B section, here's the C section, and
Sure.
then he'd come back with like, kind of with the whole orchestra, and then
Right.
he would like leave holes for my like rock stuff that I was going to put in.
Yes.
And yeah, it was a really fun and seamless process working with him, because we just, we we're so familiar with each other's strengths, I think.
And what's Austin's last name again?
Wintory, Austin
Wintry.
Wintory. So
Okay.
he's a Grammy Award winning composer for he won for Sword of the Sea last year. He won the Grammy for that, and Journey, first ever Grammy nomination for a video game.
Wow.
Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Abzu, all the giant
Okay.
Squid games and all that. So
Okay.
yeah, he's fantastic
Wonderful.
and
So,
and a good dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's important to be able to work with somebody, to call on them.
Yeah.
You just know him through the business?
Yeah, we met. He saw my talk I did at GDC like right after Bastion came out, like in 2012, I think.
Mhm.
And she's just like, "Who is this guy? We should hang out," you know. So
Very cool.
so yeah, we started hanging out, and Journey came out that year, I think, as well in 2012. So
Very cool. That's
um,
really great to hear. And yeah, because sometimes you can't do it alone. So
right.
that's amazing. Let's see. When you pause Hades, the mix changes and some of the instruments drop out. It's my
Hmm.
favorite example of dynamic audio in a game. I love that it doesn't impact the song structure.
Right. Yeah. We've actually been doing a
That's from Aaron.
version.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, yeah. We've actually been doing a version of that same technique from the very first game, actually. All that's happening there is I've got a low pass filter that turns on when you pause the game, and it just the music keeps playing, and so it just the idea of that initially, I think, was to try to give a sense that like a vitality to the game, like it still exists, like you're pausing it, but it's still kind of existing, if that makes any sense. So it gives it a little bit more life, was sort of, I think, my original idea about it. And we just have done it on every project after that one. We've kept that throughout all the projects. Yeah.
I mean, like, that's the type of stuff, like user experience. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and so thank you so much, Aaron. Um, okay, this is what I wanted to get into.
Mm,
Uh, you do some voiceovers in Hades. Like
I
this
do.
to
Yeah.
me, guys, like please tell everybody what you did on this game
Yeah.
and
Well,
whose
so
voice you are, by the way.
right, sure. So on Hades, on all our projects, all the I write the music and implement it. I can do all the sound design and put the effects in, and then I do all the voiceover direction. And on Hades 2 in particular, I started doing more voice acting. I play the main character in Hades, um, Zagreus, and I also play Skelly, who's another character in the game as well. And I mean, it was a lot of fun, and it wasn't. I did a little bit of acting in Pyre in our previous game, but it was like in a made-up language, so it was like low stakes, uh, but so it's like when we were casting Hades and trying to find Zagreus and trying to figure out his voice, we had some auditions, and we had kind of a thing we were looking for. Jen had done this really cool character design, and we kind of like, I think Greg and Jen and all of us kind of had an idea what this guy would sound like, but we weren't really hearing it, and we were having trouble to describe it to people. And the auditions we were getting back just kind of like weren't the thing we had in mind. And so I was like, well, let me try. I think I kind of like can express this to some degree, and maybe we'll have like a better ability to describe it or show it to somebody or whatever, and we'll just kind of see how it feels. And so I did kind of like you know, I thought I was kind of thinking about like Tom Hiddleston, as Loki, like a little bit of like a kind of a mischievous twinkle in your eye kind of dude, like kind of generally British dude without too much specificity to the accent, and we put it in the game, and people on team liked it, and so and we didn't tell them it was me, and they're like, "Oh, who is this? That's cool." And so I assumed until later in the project that we just end up like casting somebody else and replacing it. But like as we recorded more and more and more and more, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're not replacing this.
Like it was like temp in the beginning, and
Yeah,
then it's like, can you just keep doing this? But now I realize you have musical theater
right,
background,
right. Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
you weren't new to acting.
Right. I had a big gap. Acting was the thing I thought maybe I was going to be doing before I found music as like a real passion, from when I was a little kid all the way through high school I did acting. And I did like I was in an improv comedy group, in high
Oh,
school with
okay.
Logan
Oh,
Cunningham and the other, our voice actor, one of our primary voice actor for all the games.
oh, okay.
And so we went to high school together and grew up acting. And I made some short films in college and I did this and that and all that stuff. But so it's been a thing that was of interest to me from the beginning, but it's not like I just sort of was like, well, that's not something I'll
I
get to
mean, it
do, and
called
that's
for it
fine,
because artistically you couldn't express it to people. You weren't getting it. You gave other people a chance.
Right.
Um, and full disclosure, I'm not on Hades 2. Literally just started playing Hades, so
Yeah.
like I'm not. But what I love about your character
Hmm.
is that kind of very very subtle whimsy, where it's like there, yeah, like that you say mischief.
Hmm.
Um, and like you kind of have to have that like it's like the acting in it just you're only doing a few words at a time,
Right.
but when you're playing, like the vibe and the emotions that you're giving in the subtleness and the acting of your voice puts, in my opinion, the player in the right mindset to do the things. But
Yeah.
also is entertaining because of that kind of whimsy and mischief and oh, let me get into this, and also just kind of chill, down to earth, where it's not there's like you don't really hear like an ego so much.
Right.
Um, there's like a kind of humility there, I
Yeah.
think, that's like,
Yeah.
so that's what I wanted to talk about, because like I just wanted to commend you like on that. First of all, like it's so freaking cool
Oh,
that the
thanks.
person that did the music is also the voice of the main character. Like that is just to me so so cool. And then also that you're just so good at it. Like you didn't just do it. Like you didn't just like, no, it's mine now, because
Right.
like
Right. Right.
you did due process. It was like you went through. Everybody went through, the whole team, and it was like
Right.
artistically, experientially, like this is what it is, like this is what it's calling for.
Right.
So like it's like the serve the song kind of a concept,
Right.
right? Is like you weren't trying to get just like insert yourself to get another gig. Like
Right.
this was artistically integral to the whole game.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the how it felt at the time was certainly like it felt like, well, this is our sort of best option that we have, so let's do this. And it just didn't seem. And I wasn't, I was certainly like wary of that thing you're talking about. It's like I don't want to like cast myself, as the main character or whatever. Wasn't like my goal at all. I was like,
Yeah, you weren't like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna be the main character
no,
now.
I was hesitant to do it,
Yeah, yeah.
but like I didn't really have time to be that hesitant because we were just recording,
I mean, you were
it
in
felt like temp, and then it
Yeah,
was
but
just
like you
in
were in
there,
this mentality of helping out, right? Like you were in the
Right, right,
mentality of like getting some stuff done, having like a scratch to be able to
right,
show
right,
people and stuff. So coming
right.
from the right place there.
Yeah.
Yeah, commendable. Really, really
Oh,
commendable.
thank you very
So
much.
everybody check it out, please. Also, questions in the chat. I would love to hear it. Please don't be shy. I know we're coming up on time here. Thank you so much, Darren.
Yeah, no problem.
What's on the like? What's some of your newer influences? Like, do
Yeah.
you because are you like pulling from? I always say art inspires art. That
Yeah.
kind of idea of like, are you going to museums, and what inspires you right now?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, musically, some of the stuff I'm really digging on these days is stuff like Knower and Lewis Cole and, Wolfpack and some of those kind of like it's almost like, I mean, I guess you could describe it as what jazz is at the moment, maybe, but it's like pretty out there and weird. Nowhere is incredible. Yeah, they're like Lewis Cole is one of my favorite musicians on the planet, and I was thrilled to be able to get him to play on a track in Hades 2. It was like one of the craziest things that ever happened to me, So I was like, I get so and he absolutely kills it. He's a beast of a drummer and an incredible songwriter and producer in his own right, and he just destroys this tune I had him play on. But so yeah, no, Nowhere is a big one for me.
Nice.
Uh, I'm listening to, for me, I try to like assign myself stuff to listen to for a project. Like if I know I'm kind of headed in a certain direction musically, I'll go out and I'll try to soak in a bunch of different stuff that seems related to me. Like on Hades, I was listening to like a lot of Soundgarden and Alice in Chains,
Nice.
and just for like I really love the way they achieve, in particular, there's this one Alice in Chains record that was like, I think it was maybe the first one with William Duvall singing. It was that was
Track one?
just so heavy. It was so incredibly heavy, and just I was just sort of analyzing as a producer, like how do they achieve this heaviness? And I was like listening to the guitar sounds, I was listening to the sound, I was listening to you know, tuned way down, whatever, all that stuff. And then I was listening, and Alice in Chains, or sorry, and Soundgarden, one of the things that was really that I really took to heart from listening to a lot of Soundgarden, which I listened to before, but I started digging in more on Hades, was the way they approach odd time signatures is like really amazing to me because it's so you don't notice that Soundgarden songs are in weird time signatures, and many of them are, and you just like don't notice, you know?
Yeah.
So that's part of what's so cool for me about them, and that's I love that approach to odd time signatures, and knowing I was going to do some odd time signature stuff for Hades, that was really valuable.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's not like you don't want it to sound mathematical. It's
right,
like, but there's a vibe happening, and you just kind of get lost in the music.
right.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. And is it Jar of Flies or something? Is it for
Hmm.
Alice in Chains, that first one? Are you
The
familiar?
record, it's the first William Duvall one after they got the new singer.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it was like 2008 or something.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like one of those. It's not one of the first group of their records.
On
It's
the
like,
heavier side.
yeah, it's like it's just the sounds on it were so. It was just so heavy.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, that was cool and just like sludgy and yeah, very cool.
Mm.
And then and then there's this band. So I was on Hades in particular. My kid at the time was pretty young, but he had like he was playing drums and was like interested in drums. So I like signed him up for some drum lessons that he was like a little too young for. And he did a few and then he kind of got bored. Like he's just kind of too young to pay attention. So he had some drum lessons left and I ended up I was like, well, I'll just take them.
Nice.
And I only had like 4 lessons, 5 lessons or something that I'd signed up for, and the teacher was like kind of assessed me. He's like, play, it's like, okay, you can play. Why don't we try some weird time signature stuff? And so he showed me this, I think they're Finnish, this band called Vartina,
Okay.
and they have this one song called Tiele Hetedi. I don't know how you pronounce it, but
Okay.
that's Vartina Tiele Hetedi. And he's like, here, play this. And it was a 21/8 compound meter song. So it's
Mm.
like 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 is how you count it, right? So it's like 7, 8, and 6, I think,
Okay.
is how it's grouped. And so like it took me a couple of weeks of just like I was like wow, trying to feel that and bash my head against it, and then cut to like a month later or something, I was trying to write for Hades, and and I was like, well, I'm gonna try and write a 21/8 compound meter. So there. And it's like that approach too is like it's common in sort of Balkan music too, where it's like there's a riff that's whatever length it is, and that amount of beats is the time signature. And then you start the riff over when it ends, and like
Right.
that's the next measure,
Right. Like it's riff based.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like with vocals where it's just like it's lyrics. So when the lyrics end, that's when the phrase ends. That's when the
right,
measure ends. And
right.
so however many beats, this is the tempo.
Right, exactly. So that was really cool, and in particular, that track was like a big kind of jumping off point for me on Hades. But yeah, on each project, it's really different. Like I try to seek out influences for Transistor, for example. I was really targeting, Imogen Heap and Bjork and Radiohead and like just really kind of like reaching for that kind of vibe and studying that music and studying the production and trying to figure out, what's a way I can achieve some of the feeling of this myself. It's not like I'm trying to copy these things, but I'm trying to like cherry pick like my favorite, like, well, what about this is making me feel this particular way, and how can I kind of generate that feeling, or is there some sort of production technique that I could borrow and use that'll help, convey the thing I'm thinking about.
Right. Really well said. Uh, I mean, yeah, you're not copying.
Right.
So thank you for that. And
Mhm.
Aaron also mentions how the main character, it claps back to the narrator
Right.
every once in a while, and I
Right.
did notice that. He says, "Nice way to sell that you're playing a demigod."
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
just the wittiness of the character, and yeah, I just like the subtlety of your voice. I can get kind of annoyed at people's voices too sometimes. Like if it's
Right.
like
Right. Of
too much,
course.
it's just like I'll
Right.
turn it down.
Right.
But yeah, that's like an added benefit is like it's just very relatable and kind of chill and cool, and like it just
Yeah.
makes you just want to keep playing, which is
Awesome. Yeah.
that's what you want.
Great.
Um,
Yeah. Amazing to hear.
oh, thank you. Yes, and of course, no, thank you for saying all that.
I
What DAW
see.
do you, okay, oh
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
Chrissy, thank you
Hmm.
so much. What DAW do you use, and do you view images as you compose? Just reading it for the
Hmm.
replay there.
Right. Yeah. I use Logic Pro, and I love it. And I discovered it in college. I was sort of like I cut my teeth on Pro Tools, and I dabbled with like Digital Performer, and I started messing around with GarageBand, and this was like in the, you know, early 2000s is when this was all happening. Like I got the very first home edition of Pro Tools or whatever. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That you could, like when I was in
Oh
high
yeah, yeah, yeah.
school. It was like I had the Digi 001 or whatever, that whole thing. And like um and started just recording my like high school band in my house, and like I went to Guitar Store. I was like, okay, how do I do it? And they're
Right.
like, well, you got to buy all this stuff. And I
Here's
was like,
all the
okay,
stuff you need.
right, yeah. Like, okay. And then I sort of like just try, learned through trial and error a lot on that stuff, and then I took some classes at NYU that helped me kind of learn a little bit more about that. But I discovered Logic in a computer music class, basically. Um, that was probably the most valuable thing I learned in all of school, was just discovering Logic, and basically how it sort of unlocked a workflow that just wasn't available on those other platforms at the time.
Mm,
When Logic 8 came out in particular, it's like you have all these robust preset signal paths that are like you just kind of describe, it's just like you read the description of the thing, and it's like whatever arena rock guitar, whatever it's just like it's just that it's just really, it's like 95% the thing you want, and then all you have to do is tweak instead of spending 2 hours making a sound. And
right.
I was working in a recording studio at the time, and you get a guitar sound, you crank the amp, you do this, you put a power break on, you move the mic around, you go and you listen with the thing,
There are
and it
steps to getting the sound.
right, and it takes forever, and it's
Right.
awesome when you get it, but
Yes.
like I can get a sound that is like 99% as good as this in like 1% of the time.
Right.
And
Right.
so as a composer and a writer, and somebody just trying to like it gave me the confidence seeing that dichotomy between how quickly I could achieve stuff at home versus in the studio, and the sort of end result of the actual full thing was just better. The stuff I was doing on my computer
Mm.
in my apartment was better than the stuff like when I would have some time in the studio after hours, and I'd go and I'd set up a nice mic and put it through a nice preamp, and I'd do all this yada yada yada. It's cool, whatever, but it's just because you have time to sort of noodle and make it perfect, and you got all the tools to do it more or less. So anyway, that really um unlocked my ability to work the way I do. And at the time I was using a lot of like kind of built-in samples that they have, this giant sample library that comes with it and all this other stuff. And so a lot of percussion samples and things are just really really useful as a composer that composes in the way that I do, where the production of the track is part of the composition.
Right.
And so when it leaves my computer, it's finished. It's not like I'm writing the notes for someone else to perform and
Yeah.
then I go to get it back and I mix it and whatever. But so that was part of yeah, I owe a lot to Logic Pro for sure.
Do you have images or videos when you're recording, especially for the games?
Yeah, I mean it's I'm part of the team, so I always have access to whatever's happening in the game, like whatever stage it's at.
Yeah.
If there's art, I will be looking at the art. If there's game to play, I will be playing the game. And sometimes, you know, I'll sort of lead some of that stuff where I'm experimenting musically and there's not much else and we just have high level ideas and everybody in Jen or art director is doing the same thing, independently. And then, you know, then there are times when there will be art and there will be levels and later in the development, I'm usually kind of following a little bit more where we have this area that's this vibe and we want, and I want to do this type of music for this area, and I'm following in that case.
Hmm. Um, do you do music outside of games?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't have a lot of time for that these days. I have like a garage rock band that I'll play with
Oh, cool.
every few years.
You guys do some live shows?
We used to when I
Are you
lived in New
still in
York.
the California
Yeah, I'm
area?
in California, but I lived in New York, for 12 years, and
Okay.
this band happened when I was out there,
Oh,
and when I moved away, over a decade ago, and everybody's in different countries now,
oh,
so it's
okay.
like
What's the name of the band?
the band is called Control Group, and we have
Oh,
like
cool.
a Bandcamp page. And my favorite thing about one of my favorite experiences from this band was, it was like 2017, and we were all living in different places, and I was watching like an interview with Steve Albini online, and he mentions like, yeah, you can just book my studio and I'll record you. It's like, so I was like, hey guys, you want to meet in Chicago for a weekend and go record with Steve Albini? And we did, and
Wow.
it was like a life-changing experience where we brought two songs that we'd written and we're kind of ready and we planned to write three more songs and record them and
Okay.
mix them over the course of the 3 days we had booked.
Okay.
And and it and he was very skeptical at first that that would happen. But when he came around, he was and it was amazing working with him. Such an amazing dude, and I really got to like pick his brain about a lot of the engineering stuff I'd heard about. Like,
Wow.
there's sort of like stories in a recording studio, like the other engineers would like kind of talks about like this weird Steve Albini stuff. Like he was floor mics, and they have like there's these like stories about Steve Albini, and I got to ask him about like, so what's the deal with the floor mics? And he gives me this very like scientific sound explanation of it, where he just clearly just understands physics, of the physics of audio, and he says, well, if you have it's a room mic, and if you have a mic on a stand you're going to get a early reflection from the closest thing to the microphone and then the late reflection from the room. But if you have it on the floor, there's no early reflection. I was like, it blew my mind. And many other things about that experience were incredible. And we stayed in the studio, like there were dorms in the studio. So it
Oh,
was like
very
rock and
cool.
roll sleepaway camp. It was
Wow.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we'd
Amazing.
work from like 10 to 10, and then we'd go to dinner, and then we'd like write until 2. Like we'd write
Yeah.
lyrics and we'd flesh out the stuff and we'd like be ready for the next day. Yeah, it
Oh,
was so
what a
much fun.
cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. So, are you planning on doing things like that? Like, is that like what's in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I've become busier, I think, since then
I mean,
with
new games on the on deck.
yeah, we don't know exactly what's next. We sort of are just kind of clearing the blast zone of Hades 2.
And
Um,
congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you very
You just
much.
came from Europe. Tell us about
I
that
did.
experience. Holy crap, gosh, it's so cool to see.
Yeah. So we Game Music Festival is this organization based in Poland of some really enthusiastic music game music fans who've been doing some cool stuff for a long time, and they've been putting on these sort of classical style orchestral concerts um, in Poland and then for the last few years in London as well. And they asked us to come and do like a Hades and Hades 2 sort of concert. Um, and you know we've been working on it for a while. I worked with Austin Wintry and his crew to like make orchestral arrangements of a lot of the tunes from the games, and we did like some medleys from both Hades games, and we did like tons of songs with vocals. And it was like 84 minutes of music or something that we did, and we got to perform at Royal Festival Hall with like the London Mozart players, orchestra, and myself and the other vocalists from the games all got to perform, and it was an incredible experience. Yeah, it was wild. So that
Wow.
just happened on June 27th.
And we can watch that, I'm pretty sure, right?
It's not up officially. The VOD isn't
Okay.
up yet officially,
Okay.
so we're working on a thing.
Okay. Okay. But
Um,
everybody can see clips of it. You
yeah,
can go
there's
follow
some
you on
stuff floating
Instagram.
around,
Yeah,
floating
there's
around
stuff
online.
floating
Yeah.
around, but please
Mhm.
check it out because
Mhm.
wow, it's impressive to see. But at the very least, check out Hades 2. Everybody watching. I know we're coming up on time, and I'd love some like just 5 minutes for happy hour if you could stay after the
Yeah.
recording.
Mhm.
But just a couple quick fun ones, Darren, before we wrap it up, if that's okay. Also,
Yeah.
last call for questions. Here we go. How do you guys usually? Sorry, this is cut off for
How do you
me.
find vocalists? Is
Find
that?
vocalists.
Yeah. So, in the case of Ashley Barrett, we know each other from way back. We had a bunch of mutual friends from theater growing up,
Mm,
and she worked with me on a demo for that musical I mentioned earlier.
nice.
And she was great. And I was like, okay, mental note. And then I was working on Bastion shortly after that, looking for someone to sing the song, sing Build That Wall. And I thought, well, her voice will be just right for this. So she's going to be great for this. So, and we've been working together ever since on all the
Nice.
projects. So she's sung on every game. She's been singing on every game. And, I do, and I sing, whenever there's a male voice.
Yeah.
Up until Hades 2 is the first time we've ever had like other vocalists who weren't the two of us.
Mm,
And that just sort of happened organically because we had more characters who were going to be singing, and it sort of didn't really make sense to have Ashley and I also, you know what I mean? To be able to tell it's the same people singing, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so, for Skilla, for example, Erin Yvette is the voice actress for Skilla, and we were already recording it, and I originally planned to have Ashley do those songs, and I was like, that's gonna be weird because I want to have Ashley do this other thing. Erin, can you sing in character by any chance? And it turns out she's like musical theater, classically trained, all the whatever. So she brought it real hard and did an
Nice.
incredible job for those tunes. And Judy Alice Lee, who plays Malinui in Hades 2, is a singer as well, and she ended up singing in character and singing, backgrounds on the Skilla tunes, and then
And you guys
Colin.
are just from being friends?
No, Jubal. So Judy, we cast her as
Oh, okay.
through casting, like a casting
Casting.
agency,
Yeah.
and like we'd already been working on the game for a long time, and I found out similar to Erin Yvette, where just like I just found out she can sing,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, and same with Colin Ryan, like we cast him as Apollo, didn't know he was a singer,
Hmm.
and like I was originally going to record and sing those Apollo parts, but I just like found out
Mm,
he's like, by the way, I like a West End he like does shows at the West End professionally and stuff. So he's
perfect.
like a real, kind of musical theater dude. And so yeah, he was able to do that. And so it just so happened that the people we cast happened to be good singers, on
Yeah,
this
it
last
happened
project.
organically in this
Yeah.
case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. I mean, it definitely sounds like you're easy to get along with, like easy to work with. Like it sounds like you're somebody who might have a lot of friends.
Hmm.
We talk about that in MPS where, it's a lot of a people game a lot of
Hmm.
times, and,
Hmm.
being kind of cordial to people and respectful and just kind of like getting
Yep.
yourself out there and making friends and doing the thing. Um,
Right.
so I commend you for that. And last call for questions here. Darren, just a couple fun ones real quick if you can.
Yeah.
Favorite chord today? You got a favorite chord today?
Oh my God. Jeez
You got to
Louise.
pick one.
I gotta pick
That's why I
one.
say just today.
Favorite chord today. Maybe it's like I do like a major seventh chord when
Yeah.
I'm just like out of context of anything. A major seventh chord is real pretty.
Okay. You know what my
Yeah.
go-to that I usually say is the major seven with the sharp four.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Like the sus four situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Any just like a good old C major seven. Give me an F sharp though.
Yeah. Right. 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 Right.
Um, Okay, and then you're in Logic. So do you have any like go-to reverb? What's your go-to reverb?
I use a surprising amount of the built-in Logic plugins. Like
Okay.
I have some other plugins, but I'm just know how to use the Logic ones pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
So like
Great.
Space Designer in Logic is
Sure.
just like I just
Yeah.
use that a bunch
Sure.
mostly.
Awesome.
I
That's really good to hear for people.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
healthy
yeah.
for people to hear.
Right, right, right.
Even Darren Korb uses stock plugins.
Yes, yes, I do.
Color coding your tracks.
Yeah, yeah, I do it mostly for like especially for the Hades games where I have stems that I need to render out. I'll color code them by what stem they're going to be, and I'll group them, after I'm done sort of with my mix and I have everything sorted, then I'll, or organize them kind of vertically, in chunks of what track they're going to be on, and then I'll color code them that way. Yeah.
Do you have preferences for colors? Like are drums a certain color always?
Base is always brown.
Bass is always brown. Okay, because there's usually it's like, well, bass is always this.
Yeah, right. They've got to be brown. And yeah, I sort of go back and forth on the other stuff, but yeah, it's the stems are usually there's like a guitar stem which contains other things, and then a drum stem which also has some synthesizers. I think drums
Yeah.
are usually green
Okay.
and guitar is like, so it depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes there's
Okay.
like
So
purple or yellow or whatever.
so
Yeah.
mood. Okay, and I know
Yeah.
we talked a lot about music, but I know we have some gamers in the room here. So, any pet peeves in a game? Like, is there like a gaming pet peeve that you have?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't love like instant fail, like jumps or whatever. Like you're just like, oh, well, now
Okay,
you have to,
like what I
yeah,
love, like I don't play a lot of games, but what
yeah,
I loved about Hades was like
yeah,
this is immediately fun to play.
yeah, yeah,
Like I
yeah.
didn't have to
Awesome.
wait a
Right,
second to have
right,
fun.
right. Yeah, that's another peeve I think is just like waiting too long to play. Like I like a good cutscene every once in a while, but I don't, when I'm first starting a game especially, I really want to start playing if I can, right away. I love that. So yeah, maybe that's another peeve is like games that make me wait too long to play. Sometimes that can bother me. Or like games where they'll repeat dialogue a lot. Like you can like spam and like get the same line, exact the same read like over and over. I'm like, no, no, no. I've heard it. I don't want to hear it again. Like please.
No,
Yeah.
I hear you. We could talk about gaming all day, but
Yeah.
just quickly, I know you play D&D. We have
Hmm.
some D&D players in here. Actually, Anthony,
Yep.
a friend of mine who's part of our team here.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell him his personal life, but yes, D&D. Do you have any? And also, I have some family members who play.
Right.
Just general tips for the D&D community, from one
Hmm.
D&D person to another. Any kind of general tips, maybe for the younger generation?
Well, it's so interesting to me. What's so interesting to me about D&D is like that I sort of discovered eventually after years of playing it was there's a lot like when you're playing D&D in a way that is like optimally fun and like the best, it's like it has a lot in common with improv. Like if that makes any, you're sort of like yes ending and you're like you're working together to do a thing and there's you're
Collaboration.
doing scenes and you're collaborating. I mean it's like
Full disclosure, I don't know much
yeah,
about it, but I get a sense of
yeah,
what it is. So,
yeah. And so yeah, for me like just kind of unlocking the connection between improv and D&D was like really powerful because it's
mhm.
like it's not like trying to think of it because when I was younger, you'd try to like make your power fantasy character and be like, I'm gonna be awesome and whatever. And it's like one of the things that's really exciting about D&D sometimes is like kind of sucking is that can actually be really much more enjoyable, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And as if you have the right kind of DM and like sort of the right scenario for that supports that, it can be really really fun as long as it's not as long as you don't just lose, then you don't just die. But so yeah, I mean and for me I think it really matters like the group. I've been playing with the same group of people since I was a little kid basically, and we just have like a really custom system that we play that's just kind of built for the, six people who play,
Yeah. Yeah.
and um and it's weird and just kind of you know finding the right group and really diving deep, can be really really satisfying for sure.
Any tips specifically for DMs?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think not being too precious about the preparation you've done is really valuable
Uh-huh.
sometimes. Like I know
I
people
can
can be
see
like,
that.
"No, I've written this novel. We must do the thing," but like
Yeah,
that's part of the
I
beauty
know
of it.
nothing about it. I
Yeah.
just remember my niece was like up doing this whole long thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh boy, okay, let's see
Yeah.
what happens here."
Yeah. I mean, it can be really involved.
That sounds very similar to art, like
Hmm.
the composition of like it's really hard to like be married to an idea because it might evolve later.
Right.
Would you
Exactly.
describe the games like that too? It kind of starts one way and evolves into something?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think, you know, I've DM'd some, but mostly Amir is the DM in our group. But one thing that I really like is when, it's clear sometimes that there's like some prep that he's done and there's a thing that like we're kind of building towards, but allowing there to be different creative ways to get to, whatever the big set pieces are,
Sure.
and finding ways to incorporate that feel natural and don't feel like, you're being sort of you're on rails or whatever it is. Because that's part of the beauty of the system is that it's very open and the ability to respond to the weird choices that the players make or whatever it is part of the beauty of it, is like having it feel really kind of open and like there you really can creatively solve problems and you know, you can tell sometimes there's like an encounter that he spent a lot of time, like an enemy that he spent a bunch of time, working on or prepping, doing all their abilities and stuff, and we just like find a non-combat way to resolve that, and he's like, okay, but he'll, but he'll, it's like being flexible in that way, I think is really valuable.
Yeah, I guess in life in general,
Yeah,
that's good advice.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Darren.
yeah.
Just one last question before we go, but everybody give it up for Darren Korb. Oh my gosh, what an honor! Thank you so much, Darren.
Thanks for
Really
having me.
appreciate you being here. Just one last question for you. I mentioned to you before the recording, our
Hmm.
group is made up of a lot of people that are starting, also
Yeah.
vets in the business who've been around for a very, very long time. Do you have any kind of just last thoughts, last words, any words of wisdom, words of advice for the greater good of the group, greater good of the world?
Gosh, I mean, one thing that I find that's really benefited me is not necessarily trying to do the thing that somebody else is doing or trying to like ape things or, you know, even if you are influenced by things very specifically or deliberately, having that very personal sort of filter that everything goes through, that's very you, whatever that is incredibly valuable, I think. And so just sort of defining and understanding your own taste and your own point of view is like one of the most valuable things you can do as an artist, I think, is just knowing what you like and knowing why you like it. Um, and so yeah, that's something that I find to be really
I love
really
that.
critical. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I guess we might not know how to do that, um, but that's the journey, I guess, huh?
Right. And it's one of those things where it's like there isn't a particular way. It's just, you know, you're listening to something, you're like, ooh, and then you're like, whoa, what, why do I, whoa, what do I like about this? And
Yeah, like I
it's
like
like,
that.
why? Yeah. And then for me, the process was a lot of like, ooh, and then just kind of digging into why do I like that? What's so great about this John Bryan piano sound on this Amy Mann record? Like, why? Ooh, how do you do that? Like, what do you, oh my gosh. And then kind of like you go down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out like, oh, well, if I were to try and get a piano to sound like this, how would I do that? And you just kind of like pursue all the threads that are interesting to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And congratulations on all of the successes that you've had. Where can we find you?
Yeah, just at Darren Korb on just about all the social media things, and
Amazing.
yeah, and
And your music, right? Your original music as well.
right, yeah. So yeah, just Darren Korb on all the various
Streaming.
platforms and stuff, and then if you're interested in that band Control Group, that's on streamers as well. But it's we have a Bandcamp
Oh,
as
very
well
cool.
called, and there's like that Steve Albini record on there. It's called "It's the Year 2000" is the name of that record. If
Great.
you're interested
Okay.
in that one. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. So please, everybody, visit the Bandcamp because we want to
Yep.
support Darren in every way.
Cool.
Darren, thank you so much. Do you have 5 minutes just to stay? I know we're over time,
Yeah.
just for
Yeah. Oh,
happy
yeah.
hour.
It's all good. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Give it up one last time for Darren Korb. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching the replay. Please go follow Darren Korb at Darren Korb everywhere. Also visit us at musicianspeersupport.com. And if you're watching the replay, please comment below. Let us know that you did watch it. You can post some questions or whatever. But please engage in our community. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. This will conclude the recording. Bye.